Welcome to the Riley House Museum. This historic home belonged to Mr. John Gilmore Riley and his family. It stands today as a landmark of the 19th century Smoky Hollow community that occupied this area of downtown Tallahassee through the mid-20th century. We host many rotating exhibits throughout the year and invite you to come on in and take a look around.
Here in the parlor, we have on display Route in Search of Roots, which demonstrates the rich cultural heritage and innovative ability of persons of African descent. Route in Search of Roots traces the African diaspora throughout the context of Florida's 500-year historic timeline. This living history exhibit pays homage to the contributions of African Americans throughout the Tallahassee community and the state of Florida. Also on exhibit, we have Reconstruction Politics, which pays tribute to the first Black elected officials of the 19th and 20th centuries, many of whom can be credited with laying the foundations of what would become the Black middle class. For individuals who are interested in learning about Florida's Black history, this exhibit is a good place to start as it begins with Florida's earliest settlement in St. Augustine. Now, in the case of Florida, many times people do not view Florida as the Old South, as we have become quite metropolitan in nature. But Florida has always had a unique relationship with African slaves and descendants of African slaves. Following Reconstruction Politics, the exhibit then highlights the contributions of early civil rights pioneers, such as Mr. John Gilmore Riley and Reverend C.K. Steele, who paved the path to freedom for future generations.
Welcome to the east part of the home. Here in the former dining room, we are featuring the legacy of African American schools in Florida, which introduced African Americans such as Mary McLeod Bethune, John Gilmore Riley, Ruby Copeland, and Benjamin Baker, who helped the effort in changing the educational system in Florida. Public education was not a high priority for many Americans until the later part of the 19th century. However, newly freed African Americans and their children saw education as a way to secure a better way of life. The journey wasn't easy. Funding was hard to come by, teachers were paid low wages, and oftentimes the government entities felt as if Black schools were unable to succeed. However, African American schools overcame that perception. We have reached one of our highlights of our tour of the Riley House, and that is Mr. Riley's office. So we're standing here with Mr. John Gilmore Riley. This is an animatronic of Principal Riley that captures the essence of what a distinguished gentleman he was. He served as the principal of Lincoln Academy, which was a high school for Black students that was opened in the late 19th century, and he served there for 30 years. Mr. Riley also was a real estate entrepreneur. He owned a massive amount of real estate holdings here in downtown Tallahassee. In addition to that, he also served as a 33rd degree Mason, and a lot of his Masonic regalia is also featured here in his office. He was not only an educator, an entrepreneur, but he was a civic leader and someone who could be looked to for direction and guidance.
One of my most important involvements, next to my job as principal and my church work at St. James CME, is working with Booker T. Washington and the Negro Business League throughout Florida to advocate racial uplift through economics and education and promote racial harmony. This keeps me quite busy.
In addition to a lot of what we have captured here, we do 4 signature events throughout the year. And so we invite you back to participate in our annual Rockathon that takes place the first Saturday in December of each year. We also have our annual Pioneers Gala that takes place the last Friday in February of each year. In addition to that, we do an annual emancipation celebration on May 20th of each year, and then our fall membership appreciation reception that takes place on Mr. Riley's birthday, which is on September the 24th every year. Now for our final stop on the tour, we invite you over to the Smoky Hollow commemorative space. It is the newest addition to the city's Cascades Park and provides a wonderful reflection in the words, heart, and spirit of the Smoky Hollow residents.
Welcome to the Smoky Hollow commemoration site. Smoky Hollow was one of the first African-American middle-class communities to develop during the Reconstruction era. At its peak, Smoky Hollow was home to many businessmen, educators, and merchants. Smoky Hollow was also the birthplace to jazz musicians Nat and Cannonball Adderley. Today, our Smoky Hollow commemoration site pays tribute to the numerous African-American men and women who lived and worked here in this humble community. Smoky Hollow prospered well into the 1960s, but in the 1950s, Tallahassee went through a process called urban renewal, and under that process, many lands that belonged to Smoky Hollow residents were taken under the process of eminent domain. The Smoky Hollow commemoration site is open to the public every day. It is home to our 3 spirit houses: Enduring Spirit, Community Spirit, and Family and Home Spirit. Many residents tended to vegetable gardens, which was common for the era, and they planted crops, all of which you can find here planted in the Smoky Hollow commemoration site. We even have an herbal garden available to the public for the picking. We encourage residents to take a trip down to the John G. Riley Center and Museum, and while you're at it, feel free to visit the Smoky Hollow commemoration site located on the northern tip of Cascades Park.